My next guest says she feared for her life on January 6th. Democratic Congresswoman of New York, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is joining me. First, I would just want to ask about your personal reaction as you watched, especially given that you told me last year you thought that you might be killed or even raped during the riot on January 6th.
Yeah, well, I think my reaction was a lot of the American people's reaction. Rewatching that footage, it almost felt, especially when you consider the disinformation and misinformation campaign that happened immediately afterwards to try to minimize the scale and the severity of what happened. We have been pounded by messages from right-wing disinformation networks that this was not a big deal, that January, even from members of Congress, that it was just a tourist visit. And so I think, especially in the wake of that year of people trying to minimize what had happened, rewatching that footage was, I think, just it was like bringing everything from that day back again, not just for myself, but I also know for staff that were there that day, for support staff that were working there, for members of Congress that were there, and for the entire country that including many veterans that were watching on television wondering, how could this be us? And so, I think it was an incredibly evocative and physically resonant moment for many of us. But it was a reminder of how severe the moments of January 6th was, and that this was an attempted coup of the United States of America.
Vice Chair Liz Cheney revealed that multiple Republican members of Congress asked for presidential pardons after January 6th. You went on Twitter and directly asked Republican Congressman Gates, Boebert, and Green if they were the ones who asked for pardons. Do you have a reason to believe that they were?
Well, we do know that Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, in the middle of all of that footage that we saw yesterday of people kind of coming into the Capitol, was actively tweeting the speaker's location, was tweeting evocative, really provocative statements like today is 1776. And it very much, I believe, indicates a side here. And when you don't know which of your colleagues were part of a potential conspiracy, then we need to find out. And frankly, from a lot of the behavior that we have seen both in committee, inside the workings of the House, I believe that every member of Congress should be able to answer that question. I'm happy to answer this question. I know that Representative Jerry Connolly, Representative Chellie Pingree, we are more than willing to offer that we did not seek a pardon from the White House either before or after January 6th, or frankly at any point in time. And I believe that it's a very simple question that every single member of Congress should be able to answer.
Well, people like Scott Perry, they're denying it. You just don't believe them?
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see what the evidence that the committee lays out will be. But if the committee, as indicated, has evidence that several members of Congress did seek a pardon, you do have Representative Perry refusing to comply with a bipartisan investigation into the events of January 6th. I believe that the committee would never make an allegation so serious without very substantial evidence to present to the American public.
Congresswoman, you heard my reporting about a framework for a bipartisan Senate deal on gun safety. That deal is not expected to include a so-called assault weapons ban or raising the age to buy a firearm. Would you vote for that compromise?
Well, I think when it comes to guns, we have to look at all of the options that we have at the table, recognizing that the Senate simply right now isn't capable of, I believe, passing the comprehensive legislation in all forms that is needed. We have to look at the text. As you mentioned, the legislative text has not been put together. I am disappointed to hear a focus on increased criminalization and juvenile criminalization instead of really having the focus on guns. But the background checks provision is encouraging. So I think we need to really look at the text. And once we look at that text, I think we'll be able to see if this legislation has been responsibly put together. And I hope, it is my hope that it has been.
And assuming that it has been, will you be a yes?
I believe that if we can get background checks through, my hope is that it's a yes. Again, if we're talking about just using this as an excuse to dramatically increase an enforcement mechanism that we know is not capable right now of preventing mass shootings, then I'm not really interested in doing something for show for the American public. I'm really interested in passing a solution for the American public. And we have had even, the police department from the Buffalo mass shooting came and testified before the House Oversight Committee, and they said more of us is not going to help. Increased hardening targets, while there's something to be said for that, at the end of the day, what we need to address in mass shootings is the widespread availability of guns.
I want to move on.
So, yeah, of course.
I want to move on, but it sounds like you're saying that if it does something, you're okay with a baby step now, as opposed to what you actually want because you recognize the politics of the Senate.
Yeah, if we get a real baby step, not kind of a distraction, I think, from the solution.
Okay, I want to turn to New York politics. This week, you endorsed progressive New York State Senator Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's trying to unseat your Democratic colleague, Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney. Here's what President Obama's former campaign manager, Jim Messina, said about that. He said, "This is counterproductive. The Supreme Court is about to outlaw abortion. We could lose both houses. So we are going to focus our time running against each other. Now we're primarying committed progressives because why? If we lose the House, it's because of dumb stuff like this." What do you say to him?
I think we've seen from prior primaries throughout this year that a motivated, young, multiracial, multi-class base is exactly what the Democratic Party needs in order to win in November. We've seen these with the electric victories of representatives, hopefully to be Summer Lee, as well as Greg Casar out in Austin, that when we are able to elect representatives that excite the Democratic base, that excite young people, that excite a multi-class, multiracial coalition, then that puts us in an even better position to win in November. I think right now there are a lot of voters at home that have quite a bit of anxiety about the enthusiasm right now in terms of turnout for the Democratic Party. And I think one of the best things that we can do is elect people with a proven record of being able to excite a base and turn it out.
And I
do know that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez can do that.
You're making a statement, of course, by endorsing somebody who wants to beat and take out a member of your own party leadership, the very guy who is trying to get Democrats elected to keep control of the House. You're obviously comfortable with that.
I believe that every single year, every single one of us as a voter has the possibility to elect a representative that best suits them. I have been primaried by the Democratic establishment. I had a $3 million+ primary challenge in 2020, and I took my case to my constituency. And I think what's really important here is that I don't believe that if you get elected once to Congress, that we should be elected in perpetuity forever. And that our party is changing, our party is dynamic. And right now, millennials are deeply underrepresented in Congress compared to baby boomers and Gen Xers back when they were our age, frankly. And at the end of the day, we need to have a generational shift in the United States Congress in order for us to have a policy shift in the United States Congress.
Before we go, I just want to ask about President Biden. He is saying he's going to run again in 2024. Will you support him?
If the president chooses to run again in 2024, first of all, I'm focused on winning this majority right now. And preserving a majority this year in 2022. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I think if the president has a vision, then that's something certainly we're all willing to entertain and examine when the time comes.
That's not a yes.
Yeah, I think we should endorse when we get to it. But I believe that the president has been doing a very good job so far. And should he run again, I think that I think it's. We'll take a look at it.
Okay.
But right now, we need to focus on winning a majority instead of a presidential election.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much.